last week, or just overall any questions or thoughts that you want me to clear up, or?
No, I don't think so. I
All
think
good?
I've just been thinking a lot about what you said with in regard to the honesty and like, trying to find that good balance of it. But like, yeah, it's been hard to implement, but I think it is a good thing to try and
I'm proud of you.
thanks.
Okay, I'm quickly going to send you guys the link for the slideshow so that you guys have it. Please let me know if you can open it.
Yeah.
You got it?
Got it.
I will share it on the screen as well, just so you have it afterwards, because there are a couple of links. Did you get it, Stace?
Yeah, I did, but it's opening my Gmail for some reason.
Yeah, same. Like I just looked at mine also, like it opened Gmail.
It didn't open Google Drive like it usually does, which sends us to your link.
Oh, fuck. Why? Hang on. Okay, wait. Hang on. I might have done a whoopsie. What about this one? I miss being able to do things in person, because then like I can't fuck it up. It's printed. Check this one.
Oh, yeah, there we go. So now we're going to OneDrive. Yep, got it.
Is that better?
Mm-hmm.
My internet's slow. Hold on. Yes, I'm in.
Okay, fantastic. Cool. So I'm going to share screen. Hopefully third time's a charm. Let me see if I can do this. I'm an independent woman. Share screen. There we go. Okay. No, there we go. You guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So
Yes.
Welcome to the last Mindfulness Monday. Also, this is the squeakiest chair in the world, so I'm not actually farting, but it's like, so I apologize. But welcome to Mindfulness Monday. We're going to do empathy and relationships. So just to take you through, how do I pause? Why does it not go down? There we go.
So if it's the same one, oh, there we go. Yeah,
There we
thanks. Okay, fine.
There we go. Okay. So emotional intelligence, we've dealt with self-awareness, self-management. So today I'm chucking empathy and relationships all into one thing, because they closely related. And yeah, we can cover both in one go. So, okay, I went too fast for I used to have a Mac and life used to be good on Mac. I now have what is this? Windows crap.
Why does it scroll the other way?
Everything's different. Okay, so here are your links. I'll speak about them, but if you need to come back, they are there. This is awful. Please just go to the next page. Is there no way to like skip a page? There we go. So EQ in terms of others, we'll deal with the awareness of others. So that includes empathy and service orientation. And then under relationships, we'll do two things. We'll do RUT, which is respect, understanding, and trust. And then we'll do something called TA, which is a transactional analysis. And let's see if that works. Yes, I figured it out. Okay, so empathy. So the official definition is, because I had to Google it, because my idea of empathy, I think might have been wrong, and or different people have different opinions, but it is the action of understanding, being aware of, being sensitive to, and vicariously experiencing the feelings, thoughts, and experiencing of another, either past or present, without having the feelings, thoughts, and experience fully communicated in an objectively explicit manner. So it is feeling for someone without your emotions or your thoughts tainting that whatsoever. So it is 100% loving kindness, just caring for another human being without a selfish motive, because there is a difference. Often you'll find I can't remember who came up with this theory, I'll look it up and send it to you guys. But they said that even a mother doesn't necessarily give her child unconditional love. She needs the child to need her and give something back. So empathy isn't necessarily unconditional love, but it's close to it. It's essentially is really giving a shit and having no motives behind it. So even if you are the most empathetic person in the world, we can always learn to strengthen this. So a couple of tips, and they are on the screen, but I'll just go through them individually, and then, you know, take what you need, take what works for you and what you think you could do. A lot of these aren't possible currently because of COVID, but I'm going to go through them anyway. Okay, so cultivate curiosity. This is spending time with people you don't know very well. Again, maybe not the best in a pandemic. Follow people from many different backgrounds and be present when you talk to them, and recognize which subject matters cause certain emotions. So again, maybe not in public, maybe not in a pandemic, but you could, for instance, if you meet someone on Instagram, you could have a conversation with them, or someone you haven't seen in a very long time, or someone just out of your sort of bubble of you know, like comfortable people, or people you're comfortable with. This could be chatting to the woman who checks your groceries out, because I don't really know how many other people we're seeing at the moment, but you know what I mean. It's for future purposes when we get back out there one day. Step 2 is to step out of.
That's difficult. I'm not gonna lie. Like that point was like,
Yeah.
for me personally, like I am like extremely like socially like anxious, and just the thought of like, yeah,
Me too.
like I can do it for work in work formats. I'm great. Like I can go and talk to people, photograph them, do all of that.
Yeah.
For social purposes,
So baby steps. I'm also incredibly, you won't ever be able to tell because I'm keeping it together, but it's taken years of practice, but baby steps. So once this is over, I'm talking post-COVID, if that ever happens, go with someone you know to smaller gatherings and start there, and then say hi to people you wouldn't say hi to necessarily, and then it's just baby steps, but have a support system there. So take someone with you. And it's very hard, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. I know it sounds cliche, but you have to, it is one of those exposure therapy things. You have to throw yourself at it. And I'm pretty sure the dating that, like, I remember when I went on dates, I barely went sober because I was like, I need something to, I can't, and you can't go on a date with your friend, and most of the time it's internet dating, so you haven't met this person, and it gives me anxiety just thinking about it.
yes,
but baby steps. So because if you take it step by step, what was once very scary won't be as scary tomorrow. So well, if I find any other information on how to do it, I'll definitely send it to you.
Awesome, thanks.
I'm not very good at it. I'm still learning. Okay, so stepping out of your comfort zone, specifically, again, a bit tricky with COVID, but learning, so be a beginner at something completely new, something specifically that you might need to ask for help for. You can remember what it's like to have humility, because that often leads to being empathetic, because you can then understand if someone else is struggling. You're like, oh, I've been there, that sucks. And we used to do that as children, but we've sort of forgotten along the line. So go do something new and be bad at it so that you can ask for help and learn from it. And it often, how do I say this? Well, look, because your mindset might have been from, oh, this person's really silly for not getting this. And then you go do something new and you're like, I remember what that felt like. So therefore strengthens empathy. Then another one is to ask for feedback. It's pretty straightforward. Go to the people you love and are comfortable with and go, how do you feel about our conversations? Do you feel like I actively listen? Could I improve on something? Did I miss something important in our conversations? where are the areas of my, where could I improve in terms of communication? Because that's, again, where empathy lies. People don't feel like you're empathetic if you're not actively listening to them. And then examine your biases. So find opportunities to mix with people from other backgrounds, again, post-COVID or on social media somehow. And then walk in the shoes of others. So I'm not quite sure, maybe you guys, if you have any thoughts as to how to do that. But yeah, spend time with people you wouldn't usually spend time with and get to know what it's like for them to, what makes them happy? What are their dreams? I mean, a way you could do this is speak to like a hairdresser or someone else, but like I'd want to go speak to a homeless man and find out what is it like? Or what's your daily life like? But that's also a bit uncomfortable. So I'm trying to find like a middle ground. But something like that is a good way to strengthen your empathy. And then, and I'm really not good at this one. So difficult, respectful conversations. So we all have very strong points of views, especially in 2020. And what we could learn from this is to listen and not interrupt someone. I'm very bad, especially when I get passionate about an opinion, to not interrupt because I'm like, ooh. So I challenge you to listen and not interrupt, which is tricky. And then be open to new ideas. Apologize if you've somehow offended someone, and then research the issue. So if you're going to go at someone, at least go with the right facts, because also fact of the matter is you only have the information that you're given, and so do they. So both of you do think that you're right, but in order to strengthen empathy is to consider that maybe possibly they're correct. If they're really not, at least have some facts to back you up and be like, that's why, and then you can speak your piece. Join a shared cause. Again, this is actually very possible. You could help out at a soup kitchen, or we often, not that they've been doing it as of late, but we often go help out. They have dogs that need to be rescued, and we sort of go volunteer for that. It's an amazing way to strengthen empathy, because you get to connect with people, and then B, you just feeling like you're part of something else, something bigger than yourself, and giving back is amazing in terms of self-fulfillment. And then last one is to read widely. The quickest way, especially in COVID, to hear about other people's stories is to read about them. You don't have to interact with them, and you can get knowledge and information from people all over the world. So this includes like blogs, books, interviews, and yeah, it's 100% social anxiety friendly. So that's another way to, I mean, that's maybe a way I could learn about the homeless man without having to sit on the side of the road during COVID, which would be weird, but it's a cool way to get to.
I think podcasts and things also could fall under that.
Yeah,
possibly,
absolutely.
like listening to that type of thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't read. I don't enjoy reading.
No, then podcasts, so like,
yeah, that's what would fill in my space instead of something like that.
Amazing. And also podcasts, you can actually hear their voice, and it's not just you making up, what you think that they might be
My imagination is crazy enough. I don't need to imply it on everything.
Fair enough. Okay, so awareness of others. I want you guys, there is a link when you have some time to do it. And I'm sorry for throwing another meditation your way, but it is an amazing one to do. So it's called a loving kindness meditation. And it was, I don't often cry during yoga. I don't often cry during meditations, but this one was incredibly emotional for me, mostly because I have a problem with forgiving. But basically the summary of it is, so loving kindness, first you start off by saying phrases to yourself, like I am loved, I am enough, and you say all these lovely things to yourself, and you send yourself love and joy and all these things. Then you think of someone you love and hold dearly, and you say all these things to them. And then this third one, which fucked me over, was you need to choose someone that you strongly dislike and potentially even hate. Keep them in your heart, and you have to send them love, send them joy. And it is very difficult. You don't have to pick your worst enemy, just someone that you're not necessarily close with. or know or get along with. And it is amazing for empathy. It's a super powerful meditation. You can find loads of them. But if you do any meditation in terms of empathy and wanting to connect to people without actually physically connecting, it's a great tool. It is in your links.
Yeah, I feel like that one is like you need a safe space. Like
Yes.
that one is like
Do it at night when you don't have to see people afterwards. Make sure that you just it broke. I cried for a couple of hours. It was very, very rough. So do it when you have space and you feel safe, or you have a support system. Don't do it after a hectic day. Yeah, proceed with caution, essentially. Then we're going to relationships. So this is the not awareness, this is the management of others. So bear in mind, you can't necessarily manage other people, but this is where this part of emotional intelligence comes in. So the reason I had you all do your those VIA strength things is obviously it's amazing to know what yours are. But in your relationships, whether it be romantic, your family, your friends, your work colleagues, whatever the case is, if you know what theirs are, like their strengths are, it can really help to improve the relationship, because you can start to realize that the things that might annoy you about this person is actually their strengths. You learn how to celebrate their strengths, and it gives you insight into where you're compatible, where conflict might arise in terms of you have two very opposite strengths, and it gives you an idea of like how do we work around it, and to notice like, oh, that's where his or her strength lies, and I should embrace that and use that, and vice versa. So yeah, if you get into a romantic relationship, or there's a relationship you're wanting to work on, like with your mother, let her do the test as well and see. Also, I just really like finding out what people's strengths are. It's very I'm very curious. Okay, so we're going to talk about something called RUT: respect, understanding, and trust. So in my opinion, and luckily a lot of psychologists strongly agree with me, without these three pillars, a relationship is more than likely to fail, unfortunately. So good news is these things can be worked on, but sometimes not so much. If one of these pillars are broken down to a certain degree, I mean, you can still continue the relationship, but it's bound to not be a healthy one. So in terms of respect, what we could do is for you to figure out how would you want to be treated, and treat someone else in that manner. And then also ask your partner or friend or family member, what does respect mean to you? Because your opinion of respect and someone else's opinion of respect could be completely different. So what's acceptable for you might not be for them. So communication in this is very, very important. And also within conflict, learn to forgive quickly, because you'll often find that a miscommunication or misunderstanding will lead to you feeling disrespected, and that could have all been avoided if you knew what the person A meant, and then forgive them for the error. They might have just said something stupid and not meant to disrespect you. They just said something stupid. And then also a very good one in terms of respect. Respect when you or the other person needs a timeout, and use timeouts. I've never been good at them, but when I started using them, they were amazing. You can say, listen, I need 2 minutes to go and breathe, because this is escalating and it's getting beyond a point where I can rationally have a conversation with you. So those timeouts are amazing. And if someone else tells you, look, I just need a minute, give them the minute. It can change the entire argument. So that's respect. Understanding, and this is a tough pill to swallow, but you aren't always right. And
what?
Yeah, I know. So this is going to take some compromise and asking questions and making emotions part of your daily conversation. I know with my mom, emotions, because of how I was raised and because of how a lot of us were raised in the time, is that emotions aren't really spoken about or introduced in conversation. So in order to have better understanding of how the other person's feeling, put that into daily conversation and also get to know what their language is like in terms of what they say and what they actually mean. So get to know what being sad means for that person when they speak. And then lastly, trust. If you're needing to rebuild trust from your side, you've got to be true to your word. Again, communication is really key. And then being honest, saying no, baby steps, and being very honest about what you can and cannot commit to, because you'll often break someone's trust if you can't, if you commit to something that's unrealistic. Trust is also, it's a tricky one to rebuild, and that's at your own discretion in terms of if it's something you think that you can learn to rebuild with someone, especially if it was a romantic relationship. I know that's quite tricky. Then I wanted to quickly touch on toxic relationships. I have had many of them. And essentially what this boils down to, in my opinion, and you're completely allowed to, have your own opinion on this, but there are certain people in this world who, regardless of your wishes and what you thought something might be or what you really wished for, some people just aren't good for you. And often people might not be good enough for you, and that is okay. We live in a society where we feel like we should blame ourselves, and someone will often tell you like, no, it'll change, and it doesn't. If you're in a toxic relationship of any sort, I am telling you now that you have the permission to cut those people out in a respectful manner in order to protect yourself and protect your boundaries. The way you figure out how, if a relationship, actually, you know what, when a relationship is toxic. It's not something you do like a quiz, like, oh, is my relationship toxic? Is it not? Because you feel it. The only reason you deal with it is because you believe that it might get better, and there's something to be done. So that's just something I wanted to touch on, is to take stock of the relationships you feel are toxic and consider if you can adjust them. If not, again, that's in that CIA model we spoke about. If it's something you can control or influence, great. If not, it's something you need to accept and potentially let go of. Quick note on mental illness: whether you're dating someone, whether your family member has a mental illness, whether you have a mental illness and your family needs to deal with you, just from my own experience in terms of advice that I could give is, if you have a mental illness, know that the people around you, your partner, your friends, your family, will most likely not understand what you're going through, and that's okay. What I recommend is explaining it to them and then being patient with them as they learn how to understand this, because it's something you've lived with. They're just being exposed to it. So be patient. If you're on the other end of it, ask them what it's like, get to know what their triggers are. And just because you read a definition doesn't mean that that's how they experience it. You get so many symptoms, and people experience mental illness in so many different ways. So ask them what triggers them, and ask them how you can be there for them. But I'd recommend to not enable them and or help them in a professional manner. Like, that's, if you're not trained in psychology, best leave it for the professionals, in my personal opinion.
I think saying in terms of, trying not to enable them, I think that's it's a fine line, right? Like, just trying to deal with my sister through that, like, it's just like, you want to be like, it's okay to have down days, but then there's also times when you like need to like be like, okay, we've got to like do something to move on, otherwise we're going to be stuck here forever, so it's like really hard, because obviously, again, that's where the sort of the empathy comes into it as well, because you're like, I'm trying to understand where you're coming from or what you're experiencing. I may have experienced something like what you have, but maybe not to the extent that you have. And then it's like, yeah, it's hard, right?
It is hard. And I think, I've chatted to you about it, but your main thing you can do, the main thing in your toolbox for situations like this is your boundaries. You can take, was it a horse or a giraffe? You can only take the horse to the water. You can't force it to drink. You can make recommendations, you can influence them, but you can't control them. And therefore, it's about your boundaries. End of the day, going, look, that's all I've got. And I know with family, it's stressful, and I know that you are designed to want to love them and be them for them and look out for them. End of the day, every human being is unfortunately responsible for themselves. But we're gonna touch on that like whole dynamic right about meow. So there is something called, let me just go down, a transactional analysis. So transactional analysis, the principle that I don't remember who, I think it's someone Barnes. Anyway, there's a YouTube link and it's super annoying with the music in the back, but it's explained really well. I'll do my best to explain it. But if you want more information, transactional analysis is why there's a lot of info on it. But I'll explain it to the best of my ability. So it basically says that we have 3 ego states, and you have all 3 of them, and you go through all 3 within a day. One might be stronger than the other, but this isn't necessarily about your ego states. It's how your ego states play with other people's ego states, which is where it gets interesting. So let me just explain all 3, and then I'll talk about how they play together. So the parent is the ingrained voice of authority. It's absorbed through people you grow up with. This could be your teachers, your parents, next door neighbors, even Father Christmas apparently is in here. Which I have some questions, but let's not get into it. So a parent is made up of a huge number of hidden and overt recorded playbacks, typically embodied in phrases and attitudes starting with how to, under no circumstances, always, never forget, don't lie, cheat, steal, etc. Parent is formed by external events and influences upon us as we grow through early childhood. So the parent is the taught concept of life. So the parent, and I'll explain it a bit more in a bit more detail in a second, but it's the authoritative one. It is the we've all had that. We all, especially as South Africans, we're raised quite conservatively. We know what it's like to have a parent go, So then, and it's not necessarily all 3 of these have good elements and bad elements, and I'll get to that too. But secondly, you have the child, which is our internal reaction to feelings and feelings to the external events from the child. This is seeing, hearing, feeling, and emotional body of data within us. So we can change how that feels, but it's not very easy because it's ingrained in you. So the child is the felt concept of life. That's where all your feelings lie. And it comes up very quickly in conflict states. And you'll see why in a second. And then lastly, the adult, which, let's be honest, adulting is fucking hard. But this is where we want to live, apparently, yeah? So the adult is our ability to think and determine actions for ourselves based on received data. The adult in us is begins from around 10 months old, and it's the way this adult keeps the parent and the child in control. And the adult is the thought concept of life. So let me just go down a little bit. Okay, don't worry about the thing on the right here. So again, parent state, adult state, child, ego state. I just want to quickly mention, so like, how do you know which state you're in? Because, I mean, my adult state might be a child state. I'm just not aware of it. So that's where the whole self-awareness comes into play in meditation and figuring out who you are. But let me just quickly go into these things a little bit more in detail. So, okay, some clues as to which one you're in at any given time. So parent is physically, you're usually angry and impatient body language, finger pointing, patronizing gestures, verbal things are things like always, never, once and for all, judgmental words. And also, just a side note, beware that this could vary in and cultural differences. Different cultures have different ways of parenting, so that comes up.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, is that not also like with religion as well? Wouldn't religion play a part in the parent part?
Absolutely, because this is what you've been taught by your elders, and it's hard not to, and it's also hard not to, you've seen what children do, they copy their parents when they're young. And so if this is a different cultural background, that's going to translate into their adulthood. So the child physically is emotionally sad, temper tantrums, whining voice, rolling eyes, nervous laughter, squirming, teasing. Verbal things is, and I use these a lot, I didn't actually realize it, but it's things like I wish, I don't know, I want, I'm gonna, I don't care, things never go right, worst day of my life, worst. I know I definitely used worst year of my life a lot this year. And you also use words to impress, like big, biggest, best, sort of words to impress. And the adult physically is attentive, interested, straightforward, non-threatening, and non-threatened. Verbally is why, what, how, who, where, how much, in what way. And I think, I realize, I see, I believe, in my opinion. And that, I mean, that sounds amazing. I want to speak to that person, and I'd love to speak as that person that asks questions and is level-headed. It's very hard to be there all the time, but that's what I strive for. So within all of that, also remember that in terms of communication, only 7% of what we say is said with actual words. And then 38% is the way in which we say these words. And then about 55 is body language. So let me get into, before I get into how they play, there's one more thing I have to mention, is that within the parenting section, you get 4 quadrants. So you get the nurturing side, which is positive. Parents nurture us, that's cool. That feels good. But then they could also spoil us, which is negative. You get controlling, which is structuring, which again, very positive thing. Or you get critical, which is not so good. And then the child also has 2 states. So you get adapted. That child can be proactive, which is positive, or compliant, or resistant, which is negative. And then you've also got spontaneous, which is positive, and immature, which is negative. So all of these things have good and bad elements to them. You want to be able to tell someone when they're being a jackass. You want to be able to be creative as a child. You want to also be able to show remorse. You need all of these things. Where this becomes important is when you interact with people. So let me just see. Okay. So this one's a bit small, but essentially there are a lot of different ways in which these can work, but what we really want is the one at the top. The adult in you should speak to the adult in someone else, and that should translate back. This doesn't always happen, and they also move from different ones. So someone's boss could go, so this parent goes, you're late for work, why are you late for work, you're an idiot. This person then goes into a childish state where they go, I'm so sorry, and they're awkward. And for any, oh no, that's this one. And that relationship could continue like that. It's only when this person, but it's obviously not healthy, I'm not saying, but the relationship can continue. Vice versa, if it goes in the same direction, so parent to child, and then you receive the same and it's the same pattern, it's fine. But what often happens, because we're human beings and we have emotions, is you'll go, fuck you. How dare you speak to me like that? And you go into the parent, and then the parent in that one goes, oh shit, okay, and then moves to the child. And you're shifting between these so much that no message is being received in the same way that it's sent. And you hit a lockdown and communication in the relationship doesn't work out. So how do we solve this? There's another little diagram that's I feel actually sums it up quite nicely. So there's the I'm okay, you're not okay, I'm okay, I'm not okay, you're okay thing. So where we want to be is I'm okay, you're okay. That would be great, right? But sometimes you can go from I'm not okay, but you're okay, which leads to helplessness. I'm not okay, you're not okay, everyone's fucked. I am okay, you're not okay. You got to get rid of anger. So essentially, this is, again, comes back to the CIA model. You can only, unfortunately, work on you. You can make sure that you're okay, and you can use the resources available to you to make sure that you're okay. And you can influence someone. So you can help someone who's not okay, but you can't change that for them. You can influence it. And then sometimes you just have to accept that someone isn't okay. So you need to figure out where on that diagram you are, where the other person is, and where you guys meet each other together. Because essentially, this is the healthy way of having a relationship. It's not always going to be there, but that's what you should strive towards. Then there's something called the drama triangle. I sent you a YouTube link as well as like a document explaining it a bit better. But what it means is that drama triangle has 3 people, and you have been all 3, sometimes simultaneously, and there's nothing wrong with it. But it's not a good place to stay. It's okay to visit, but you need to go home eventually. So the victim, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's, oh, everything always happens to me. Why me? Life is really bad. You know, yeah, victim's pretty self-explanatory. The rescuer is someone who goes, I need to help this person. I can help them. I need to change things for them, but often at their own peril. So they avoid their own issues to deal with someone else's issues because it's easier. And then you get the persecutor, which is basically someone who is very judgmental, like, oh, you're all being a bunch of idiots, and why can't you just get it right? So here's a picture showing all of this. So often the relationship between the victim and the rescuer is what we see in romantic comedies, and we're made to think that that's normal and healthy, and it isn't. Someone shouldn't be rescuing you, and you shouldn't be rescuing them, because it is not a it's just not healthy, man. It's not. So how do we get out of this drama triangle? This takes 2 to tango. Again, you can do what you can from your side to make sure that you're taking these steps. You can even explain to the other person how they need to take these steps. But again, if they're not cooperating, it's a relationship you might need to, reevaluate, or it's kind of like you've done what you can and the rest is their, balls in their court. So how do we get out of this? If you're in the victim state, which I've been here, I've been there, I feel like I'm in all of these at least once a day, if not more. So the victim, so how do you change the victim? Or how do you get out of being a victim? Is you change it into being a survivor. So how do you do that? Is you become a problem solver. You go, okay, look, this sucks and this happened to me, but how do I solve it? How do I get back up? What do I do? This is where that gratitude list comes into play. How can I be more positive? What do I need? How do I turn this around? And you sort of introduce positivity. So that victim can sort of start to shift more to like, I'm okay. And then the rescuer, and Stacey, I'm looking at you. No, I say that with love. The rescuer turns.
I know myself as well, so don't worry.
Okay. So what a rescuer does, or to get out of this drama circle, because this is a never-ending. It's a
triangle. Almost there.
I'm done with this year. I'm actually done. Okay. So a rescuer has to change themselves into something called the coach. So the coach can still listen to other people and support them, but you have to support them while they find their own solution. You can't give them the solution and you can't enforce it. You can be there for them and listen to them, but they've ultimately got to find the solution for themselves. And this is where boundaries come into play. It's very important because at some point you need to go, because you can't pour from an empty cup. So there's a post I saw on Instagram, and it said that this person's friend usually before, never mind, let me restart. Before venting and sort of putting a lot of stuff on people, I always ask if someone has the space emotionally and mentally to cope with it. And you're allowed to, on the other end of that, say, look, this does not mean that I do not love you and care for you, but I have a lot on my plate right now. I can't handle this right now. Can we chat tomorrow? Boundaries is something I've had to really work on this year with COVID and lockdown and living in a house with a lot of people. Boundaries are important. So help people, but know when it's time to help yourself and be like, okay, I'm gonna need a timeout. So that's how you get out of that rescuer role. And then persecutor is, you want to change that into something called a challenger. So the important thing there is to, and that's a hard one for me because I often see people doing stupid shit and I'm like, what is wrong with you? And I start stressing out about other people being morons, which is, that's not my place, but I do. And then it starts causing negative emotions for me. So how to change that is to realize that it's not your problem. It's not, unless it's something you're faced with. It's just, there are always going to be people that annoy you and things that you're going to want to judge, but you have to start realizing that not all of this is your problem. And the underlying key question to ask with this is, what do I want? What do I want out of this experience? What do I want out of this interaction? And that way you get more clear on it. Because once you realize there's nothing I really want from this interaction, you can let it go. So I think, girls, that's all I've got on empathy and relationships. There are loads of TED Talks, and yeah, I'm happy to share a bunch of websites. But essentially, yeah, it's about managing yourself, hence the self-awareness and self-management, and then you can influence people. And if you know how people work, you know, it becomes a little bit easier. But again, try to figure out if those 3 pillars are there, and then try to recognize, oh, a good way that meditation helps you in terms of this is, or actually not even just meditation, is to, whenever there's conflict, whenever you're anxious or stressed or something comes up, stop and ask, or in a conflict situation, stop and ask, am I responding from a parental, an adult, or a child state right now? How can I adjust that? Because amazing things start to happen if someone's treating you from a parental role or child role and you're not there, and you become the adult, because the adult can control the parent and the child. It can, so for instance, someone is in the child state and you want them to meet you back on the adult state, so you can go, I love you and I hear you and your feelings are valid, but I feel that you are potentially overreacting. Could we maybe reach a compromise? Same thing from the parental side of it. The adult can bring that back down so that you're both speaking like adults. The reason why we switch between the two is that's how we're hardwired, that's what we're taught, and emotions fire them up and go, I mean, that's, I've done that in conflict. I'll go from like, to like, you know, sulking within seconds. So you got to figure out how to reach that adult and how to have your adult speak to the adult and the other person. And it's a cool conversation to have, explain that concept to someone you're close with and want a healthy relationship with. And then you can call each other out on your bullshit and be like, you don't actually say that you're being a child, because that won't end well. But you know, start to have a conversation around, look, is this how you really feel, or is this potentially a reaction from an ego state? Again, proceed with caution. It might not go very well, but it's an interesting conversation to have. And even if you don't have the conversation, as long as you know how it works, it makes it a little bit easier. So yeah, that's my 10 cents.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Do you guys have any questions or comments or?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking that, you know, the VIA things that you told us to do, and like you saying, again, I think it's just another tool in terms of your empathy, like for your building your empathy sort of toolbox, because
Yeah.
that is you trying to understand where somebody's coming from, right? So it just ties in so nicely with that, trying to build your empathy for somebody and try to see from their perspective why they're reacting in certain ways.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me, it was a game changer when I could explain the relationships. Look, I'm not being funny to be sarcastic. I'm doing it to lighten the mood because that's how I show love. And the second anyone else in a relationship with me understood that about me, it made it a lot easier. I stopped offending as many people, and they started seeing it as an act of love rather than a childish reaction.
Yeah.
I think that's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Clarify, like from the perspective of your ego states and stuff that you, so I mean, when I was looking at that diagram, if we can just go back to just so you can follow, but you know, when like you're saying that somebody's being childish and you're trying to be the parent, I mean that those arrows are, and it just keeps going back and forth in that state. Were you saying that is like it's a, you can still get useful like sort of communication and like whatever through that, or is that problematic?
You can. So you see this bottom one?
Yeah, that is
so
that one, yeah.
Pat says you should be grateful, and then the child and that person says, perhaps I've taken too much on this time. That's a healthy thing, but someone somewhere is going to have too much, or their emotions are going to run wild, and someone's going to shift out of one of those, because your parental and child state isn't a natural state to live in. So you're going to move out of that. So yeah, you can maintain a relationship like that. It's just not necessarily healthy. What you want is
adult.
Yeah, so you've got a crossed, this is called a crossed transaction. So it's parent to child, child to parent. This is called a complementary, I lie. So this is a complementary transaction. You being an adult to an adult. This is a crossed transaction. So this person's saying you should be grateful. What do you do in the evening? Okay, that's a bad example, but the one person is the parent and someone is trying to speak to the child and you, but you're responding to your adult side is responding to adult in them. It's a bit complicated to wrap your head around that one. So complementary transaction with changed ego state. So this one, I mean, it's not healthy, but it works. So as long as you guys stay there, but it's not going to last. Someone is eventually going to crack and go somewhere else. The YouTube video, as annoying as it is, gives a couple of examples. And then also once you get into, there's a couple of TED Talks on something called the drama triangle, which will explain this quite well and sort of help you figure out where you're sitting and how you can impact people in terms of getting out of that. But yeah, if someone's constantly acting like a child, you're constantly going to have to act like a parent, or like the adult. It's just, it's not a healthy relationship. It's not something you want long term. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
You're both like in the child state.
Then it's not necessarily a bad thing. So Bjorn and I often are both there. And like I said, the child state can be positive. We could both be creative, playful people at the time and speak to each other. It's when I start to sulk and he's like, nah, then it doesn't end well. And usually and then usually what happens is you'll have someone switch over into the parental state and go, you need to stop acting like that, or someone's going to shift emotionally. We're very fragile and triggered, so something is going to move somewhere. And again, it's the parental state is a good thing to have because it's structured and it's like, please don't jump off the side of a wall and hurt yourself. Like there's reason, and there are and
like parkouring through your living room.
Exactly like parkouring through your living room. So yeah, someone sometimes needs to tell you if you're doing stupid stuff, and it's not to say that can't work. So again, that would be an example of the parent who truly cares going, please don't do that. That's irresponsible. You should never put a knife in a toaster. And the child in you goes, but I can't get the toast out, but fine. And then therefore no one's hurt. It doesn't have to be that serious. It's only when it comes to conflict and it's a repeated cycle and no one can shift out of that or learn how to, that's how, I don't know about you guys, but that's how I know most arguments are finished, is when you've stopped doing this and you're both adults and you go, I'm sorry, I was wrong, I will work on it, I hear you, and then the person reciprocates, and it's sort of, you're like, okay, we've come to a truce. Until then, you're gonna, play around, because again, as human beings, we'd rather be right than comfortable. So
yeah. Being right's so much fun though.
Yeah, I know. If you're gonna be right, just have some facts and some graphs up in the background.
Yeah. I'll bring my whole presentation.
This is why, I don't know if it was just because of the way I was raised, but my father was quite stern, and he was a businessman, so if you had to argue anything, you'd have to know your shit before. So I knew how to make slideshows with graphs and stuff from a very young age. So that translated into my adult life. So I'd go do my research and then just be like, funny you should mention, and then go. And I obviously am open to being wrong. I'm not that open, I suppose.
I think most people really aren't that open to being wrong, to be fair.
No,
that's
okay.
I do have to say, I think it's more a female trait also at times, where it is very much ingrained into us that we are always right. And we've just been proven right so many times that it is like a thing.
It's because we're smarter.
Most definitely.
You said it.
Stacey knows Bjorn, you haven't met him, but he's a sweetheart, and I'll argue with him and he'll just be like, okay, you're right. I'm like, yeah, I am. And then and I know I'm not. I know for a fact, but I have this need to express myself and be like, to the point where he'll have agreed and the argument would have stopped 15 minutes ago, and I'm still going and I would love to know why, and I would love to explore why I have this inevitable need to be right, but I like that it's a female trait.
I honestly think it's such a female trait.
Yes.
I don't know why. I don't know what happened in society for us. I think because we were pushed down so much that we became so much more vocal about our opinions.
Yeah. Watch me burn a bra and tell you the 10 reasons why not.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, thank you girls so much for participating in this. This has been lovely.
Thank you.
I'm gonna
that you put into making all of this and getting the resources and stuff. Really.
Yeah.
Thanks, my girl. I would really appreciate, I know it's city season and everyone's very busy, but I'd like to, I'm starting a course in terms of coaching. And it would really help me if at some point you guys wouldn't mind very short, just writing a little review of how you experienced it. just in terms of how I communicate and or coach, would be really helpful. Whenever you have the time, there's absolutely no rush for it, but I'd really appreciate that. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, where do you want us to WhatsApp it to you or how?
Yeah, just
No.
WhatsApp it to me personally, and I'd really appreciate it.
Cool.
Awesome.
Okay.
We shall do this.
Okay, cool. And then let me know when you're in Cape Town.
I shall.
Okay.
I shall.
I'm very excited.
I'm so
to see
excited. I'm flying on the 3rd of Jan.
you. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let
Finally
me
booked
know.
my flights yesterday.
Yay! That's very exciting. I'm excited to see you. And
Yeah, I'm
Stacey,
so excited.
Stacey, when are you off to Zim?
I leave on the 29th of December, so next week, Tuesday evening.
Okay, cool.
How's it getting through the borders now with COVID and all of that?
So luckily I'm flying, so it's going to be a lot easier. That way I would not like to be at the actual border for that, because God, it's like a nightmare there. But it's just also having to, the same thing as flying internationally, to have a negative COVID test 72 hours before you fly. And then obviously same on the way back in. So yeah.
Okay. Have you done a COVID test yet before?
No.
I have.
Good luck. I saw my mom taking one the other day. It's not fun.
I no, man, you'll be fine. I did one. It's fine. It just
It's like they dig like so far up your nose. It's like
no, it's fine. It's
But
very quick, but it definitely is a new sensation. Like also Bjorn didn't help because he's like, it went so far up your head, so this thing just keeps going, and he's like, where did it go? Like, where in your head did it go? So it'll be fine though. It's quick. It's really not.
Yeah. And it's by in like a second, and like my mom said, it just felt like she wanted to sneeze afterwards the whole time.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Okay, girls, but
Best of
thank you
luck.
so much for taking part in this. I really appreciate it. And yeah, let
Thank
me
you.
know if you have any questions or anything. I'm happy to help.
Yeah.
No, it was awesome. Thank you so much. And once you've like the recordings and so on, are you going to send it on the group or like?
I have been. I sent week 1 and week 2 on the group. And I think it's in the group description. Every week I sort of change it.
Okay.
I'll send them all again in a sort of group thing, and then yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Well,
Cool.
I'm excited to see you both. And yeah, have a fantastic evening.
Yeah,
If you ever do anything like this again, let us know.
I will do.
Oh.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for participating. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, girls. Have a good evening.
Have a lovely
You too.
Bye.
That too. Bye.